What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox. Today, we're talking Monday Night Football. It is a double header. We're also going to get into TNF and recap yesterday's game with our friend Mark Gunnels of Lakers Nation and Arrowhead Pride. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good. Aren't you also on the Lemon Pepper podcast with our friend Martin Weiss as well?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. We've had him. He's a friend of the program. We love him. And so we're so excited to have you on as well. All right. So big Lakers fan, big Chiefs fan. I feel like we're already not getting along because I'm a 49ers fan and I'm a Warriors fan.
Oh, wow. Just the opposite end of the spectrum there. That's crazy.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I love Patrick Mahomes. I will say, since you are a big Arrowhead and Chiefs fan, what did you think of the documentary, the quarterback documentary that our friends over here at Omaha Productions put forth?
Oh, I thought it was great just to see the behind the scenes of, how much Brittany is involved in
Yes.
him with the new baby and stuff like that, being a dad. So she really holds it down at the house while he's watching film and stuff like that. It was really cool to get that. And shout out to Kirk Cousins, by the way. He was the quiet star of that show. You're right. Like
Yeah.
the fact that his wife picks out his outfits, I thought was pretty cool.
Well, okay, I agree with you. Like justice for Brittany, because I feel like Brittany gets a lot of bad press. Some of it she brings on herself. We'll go ahead and say that. However, she was his number one fan before anybody else was. Like they've been together for so long. He kind of fought to get her. She's been his like ride or die. And like, yeah, their family life is beautiful. And so I thought that was really good, at least so that people could see that she's a human being and a
Yeah.
mother and a wife and just a fun friend too. So I love that. And yeah, Kirk Cousins hasn't had the best start to his season, but he'll always have the quarterback series.
Yeah, and poor Marcus Mariota, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people just kind of overlooked his part in the
Well, because
documentary.
rightfully so, though. Rightfully so, because like
Yeah,
what I think they brought him on to be the the underdog story, and then unfortunately it just never went the direction that they had hoped that it
yeah.
would go. But all right, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about tonight's doubleheader, Monday Night Football. Or actually, no, let's actually recap week 2. So it was a great weekend of football, right? I mean, the overs went like crazy. Underdogs were doing well. So the Ravens defeated the Bengals 27-24. So now Baltimore has improved 7-1 versus Cincinnati with Lamar Jackson as the starter. Lamar Jackson, 24-33, 237 pass yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, 54 rush yards. And then you look at Cincinnati, 0-2 for the second straight season. They can become the first team to ever start 0-2 and reach the playoffs in consecutive seasons. So it's not necessarily like this is anything new for Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow, having come off the highest paid quarterback, hasn't really looked too great. He started off slow. He looked better in the second half, ended with, just over 200 yards, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. Should we worry about him and the Bengals at this point?
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because I'm worried about that calf. He
Yeah.
really aggravated it yesterday, apparently, and you saw him after the game limping towards the locker room. It just doesn't look good. I always felt that the Bengals may have rushed him back a little bit because even week 1
Yeah.
against the Browns, he didn't look mobile at all. And he's not the most mobile quarterback in the world, but he is able to get out of the pocket at times and be a little shifty within the pocket and make things happen. And he hasn't shown that in the first 2 weeks. So this 0-2 feels a little bit different than last year's 0-2, especially the fact that both the games were in division against the
Yeah.
AFC North, right? And then now week 3, you're having to play the Rams team, who looks a lot better than we all expected before the season. So that's not just a gimme game, which should look like that maybe
Yes.
before the season. So
Yes.
yeah, I am concerned for the Bengals, especially now the Ravens are 2-0. The Browns could be 2-0 after
Yep.
tonight. So yeah, I think it is time for panic if you're at Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, and to your point too, Joe Burrow, 2 starts, 0 completions of 15 plus air yards, and that's just not like him at all. So yeah, something is up. I am worried about his calf. Interesting because you bring up the AFC. Well, first of all, the AFC North, I thought, and I'm not saying I don't think this anymore, but I think the first couple of weeks have been shaky, was the best division in football, top to bottom. When you look at these teams and these quarterbacks and they're well coached and the defenses and the amount of weapons that they have, the NFC is 6-0 versus the AFC so far this season, when it looked like, the NFC was like the poverty conference of football. So that's just been kind of interesting. Another interesting thing to discuss: the Bucs defeated the Bears 27-17. Baker Mayfield, 26 of 34, 317 yards. No interceptions. It's his first time in his career, Mark, that he started 2-0 in a season. Look, everybody thought that this Bucs team was going to compete with the Cardinals and being like the worst record in football this year. Should we be excited about the Bucs, or was it, Kirk Cousins beating himself and then the Bears?
Yeah, let's relax. Let's pump the brakes there. Yeah, I mean, the Vikings, I had them as a non-playoff team before the year.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know they won 13 games last year, but there's plenty of stats that show they were one of the luckiest teams last year. All those one-possession win games. Eventually, things have to come back to the medium, right? Things have to come back to reality. I think you're seeing it now this year because their first two losses were one-possession games in each of them. So I think you're seeing the regression there. And then the Bears, I mean, do I have to say much about them, Katie, really? Do I have to go in depth about Chicago? I mean,
I should have showed up to this podcast with a clown face on, because I was like, I think that the Bears can turn this around. It never kept being like, Mox, they were the worst team in NFL last year. There's no way. I thought they made good on their, draft with the number one but it's
hold on. Are you one of those people that you put in a Justin Fields MVP ticket in the summer?
No, I'm not that crazy.
Okay.
But I did say that the NFC North was going to be much more wide open, and I thought that the Bears. I didn't take a ticket, but I did suggest that the Bears could win the division. Which, again, I could have shown up with a clown painted on my face. But the only reason why I'm not is because how about those San Francisco 49ers, Mark? All right, defeating the Rams 30-20. Actually, no, I think that it was a different score than that, because the Rams ended up with a backdoor cover because they kicked a field goal there in the end. What?
I said unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I know. It was, thank God. I took the 49ers team because I'm a 49ers fan, but I only like to bet them in spot. I don't bet against them, but I only bet them in spots that I think that they can win. I did not take them to cover the spread. At one point, it was 8.5. I know that these two teams play each other really close, McVay and Shanahan and all the offensive mastermind stuff that they throw at each other. But I did take Niners over their team total, which was at 26.5. I thought that the Niners could get to 30 again. Here's what we see here. 49ers 9-1 versus the Rams since 2019. We win every game except for the NFC title game, which will haunt me for the rest of my life. The Niners have won 12 consecutive games, and all of that has to do with Christian McCaffrey. They're 12-0 with McCaffrey. The guy is just insane, but we all knew that the 49ers were going to be good. We can talk about Brock Purdy. He had some overthrows. I'm more impressed with this Rams team because, like you said earlier, Mark, this Rams team was supposed to be dog doo-doo, and some of their young guys like Puka. How good is Puka? 15 receptions, 147 yards in week 2, third most receptions by any player through 2 games in the NFL season. What are your thoughts on the Rams?
My first thoughts are, I love the names. Puka
and Tutu.
Tutu. I mean, come on. Those are 2 great names for receivers. I love it. And then Cooper Kupp's going to be back in a few weeks. That offense could be something to be reckoned with. I didn't expect it. The offensive line looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Them young guys are playing. I think we got to give Sean McVay more credit.
Yes.
Over the past years, people were talking about, well, he's always had all this talent. They're so top heavy on both sides. Is it really him or is it the talent? Well, now you have all these young, unproven guys playing well. And also, I think the Rams, this is the funny part about the Rams. Outside of those receivers, I think they could actually make some noise as far as a playoff spot because you talk about the NFC, right?
Yep.
I think we know the Niners and the Seahawks, I think, are still better than them. But the wild card spots, I mean, can you really pick 3 wild card teams over the Rams with confidence right now? No. I don't think you can, the way they've been playing so far. So, yeah, major shouts out to the Rams. And, I know you're a Niners fan, but you got to be a little discouraged what you saw yesterday? Just a little bit. Just a little.
No, I'm not. Well,
No,
one,
not a little
well,
bit.
not a little bit. No, one.
Okay.
Okay, let's. Brock Purdy is. Are you talking about Brock Purdy? Is that who I'm discouraged
Yeah,
about?
I'm talking about Brock. Yeah.
Yeah, so he definitely had some overthrows, right? Like there were some spots where you're like, "Whoa, bro! Like you over." He did it to Debo, he did it to Ayuk, and some that definitely would have went down to a touchdown. If that's Brock Purdy's worst game, he didn't turn the ball over. You know what I mean? He still made a lot of completions. Then I'm okay with that. Let's not forget this is his second game. Um, back from his elbow injury. And look, McVay and Shanahan play each other at such an elite level. They kind of work the same way. And I will say, defensively, Steve Wilkes was getting cooked by McVay in that first half of the game. And like you said, that I was very impressed with the O-line and kind of not discouraged by the defense, but I'm like, what is happening? You know, they just could not get pressure on Matthew Stafford. They made the right adjustments. And what I think is so interesting, they started throwing a lot of Fred Warner blitz packages at Matt Stafford. And that's when things started to change around. He threw a couple interceptions. Okay, one of them wasn't his fault, but that's my favorite bet in football is a Matt Stafford interception, especially against the 49ers. Once they started to create that pressure, then it started to crack a little bit. And usually Matt Stafford is pretty elite against the blitz. But once, I was happy with Wilson making the adjustments. Once the defense started getting pressured, the whole game changed. But yeah, it was a little bit shaky there at first because I think this Rams team is better. And like Brock Purdy, it was the worst game. And if his worst game is still putting up 30, I think we're okay.
That's fair. See, I tried to get you to rock off, tried to get you to be a little shaky, and you just came back with just,
I can't.
I'm good. We're
I'm
okay.
good. Yeah, and look, it's like it's so hard to be like, this is our year. It feels like it could be, but it's all about the quarterback, and it's all about the health of the quarterback, and we know that
You've been
that has
saying
been
it's your year for the past 10 years.
not 10. I would say since like 2019.
Yeah,
So
I was being a little exaggeration there.
and what happened, and you know what happened in 2019, y'all. We were up by 10 at half, and then y'all beat our butts. But yeah, who knows? I mean, we'll see. We just got to get over that NFC Championship hump. A team that's kind of headed in the wrong direction are the Los Angeles Chargers, and it's their fourth double-digit blown lead to start the season. The only team that has more is the Raiders. They're the 34th team in the Super Bowl era with 50 plus points, 0 turnovers through 2 games, and still lost those games 0-2. Is it time to put Staley on the hot seat, or what is happening in LA?
It was time last year when they blew a 27-0 lead in the playoffs in Jacksonville. I mean, seriously, how many coaches do you know that have already been kind of scrutinized before with questionable decisions going on forward on fourth down in your own territory?
Mm-hmm.
Go to the playoffs, sure. You back them to the playoffs, fine. But then you blow a 27-0 lead and you still keep your job. Like I don't. There's not a lot of coaches that are surviving that.
No.
And now you're 0-2.
And you've got Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is a great quarterback.
He's a top 5 quarterback to me.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be a defensive guy, and your defense has been awful through 2 weeks. You're giving up 30 points to the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
I mean, I know it went to overtime or whatever, but my gosh. And then last week, I know the Dolphins have a great offense, but still, you gave up almost 600 total yards of offense. That is like Madden numbers on rookie. So, I mean, they have obviously a must-win game this week.
Yeah.
2 0-2 teams. Actually, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
They're playing the Vikings this week in Minnesota. Two teams that have playoff aspirations that are 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
Both teams are playing for their season. And I think I can't wait to see I want to know what the over-under is on this one. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it yet, but
it's got to be high.
A lot of points scored on this game.
It's got, because neither of them can stop anyone from running on them. You mentioned this Dolphins team. They defeated the Patriots 24-17. They put up Tua had 466 passing yards in week 1 versus the Chargers, which is absolutely insane. You look at this Patriots defense, who was really good. They were able to limit what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, who have a pretty potent offense, in week 1. They almost lost that game. Is Miami the real deal? Are they the most dangerous offense right now in the league?
Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
are. I don't see how you cannot say that at this point. Obviously, things were a little slower yesterday, but I expected that. You're going to Foxborough. We know Belichick's defense is always known for taking what you do best away. And I slammed the Tyreek Hill under, by the way. Because,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Well, you know what? Because you obviously are a big Chiefs fan, so you know him
yeah,
more than anybody else. See, and that people always say like, "Oh, you're such a homer. I'm not going to follow your bets." But when you follow the team, well, you
yeah,
actually, have a podcast about the team. You know more about them than
yeah.
anybody else. So yes, okay. So you faded Tyreek. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, after that explosion last week, you just knew Belichick
Regress.
was not going to let that happen, especially in Foxborough. So I think that was a pretty easy play there. But yeah, overall, I mean, Tua's super accurate. He does have these moments though where he throws up a duck
Yeah.
and he just kind of just throws it up for grabs, like you saw
Yeah.
that pick by
Yeah.
Gonzalez yesterday. So those moments do happen. But I've been more impressed with their running game. I mean,
Yeah.
with your former guy, right?
Coach Strati. Yeah. Yeah. Love him.
Right? Like
Mhm.
he's looking pretty spry there in
Yeah.
South. Maybe
Yeah.
the San Francisco weather wasn't for him. Now he's in South Beach. You got
Yep.
the palm trees
Mhm.
down there in Florida. So he's looking good. So yeah, I mean, Mike McDaniel, another former Niner there. They're just taking all your guys, right? They're just taking the whole
Oh,
brain
well, don't even get me
away.
started on the Trey Lance and everything that they got for Trey Lance. I gotta be honest. I'm
Yeah.
I'm happy that the Trey Lance drama is behind us and that now he's with the Cowboys as a $6 million third string quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But let me ask you real quick about the Chiefs because week one was a disaster. You had Kadarius Toney with all of those drops, and the drop that turned into a pick six. He went 3 for 3 with receptions and catches in week two, I believe. So much better showing by him. But then, I think everybody thought that this Jags and Chiefs game would be an offensive blowout, and it was really a kind of a tight, lower scoring game. Do you have any concerns about the Chiefs right now? I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, so I don't get concerned, but it's not the start that we thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to tell me after week two, if I could pick one thing to not look good at, it would be the offense because I'm not worried about that long
Yeah,
term.
yeah,
I think the offense will be fine when you have Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelsey,
yeah.
and you have a good offensive line. So I think they'll be fine. But how about that defense? Can we talk about our
Mm,
defense? I want
yeah,
to give them some flowers.
yeah.
One, without Chris Jones, only allowed 14 points against the Detroit offense that was top
Yes.
five last year.
Uh-huh.
And then week two against Trevor Lawrence, who people think could be a potential
Mhm.
MVP candidate. I'm people, by the way. He only allowed 9 points, didn't give up a touchdown.
Yeah,
Calvin Ridley had under 40 yards receiving. Chris Jones completely wrecked that game. His first game back, you couldn't tell that he didn't have any training camp or preseason. He completely wrecked that game. Had
yep.
a sack and a half, multiple pressures, multiple batted balls down. So I'm really impressed. And I said before the year, I thought that this could be a top 10 defense,
Wow.
which would be the first time Mahomes has had that in his career. And not to mention another former Niner, Charles Omenihu is suspended
Yeah.
right now. So he'll be back week 7
Mhm.
to beef up that D line even more. So I'm really excited that Patrick Mahomes is actually going to have a really good defense for the first time.
Right. No, exactly. And I think everyone just assumes that this offense carries them through. You have the best quarterback, in the league now, could be one of the greatest of all time. I certainly think that I don't want to say he's more talented than Tom Brady, but he certainly
He
has
is. You can
more
say it.
he's got more abilities than Tom Brady had. And the things that he does is just ridiculous. And when I watched that week one game too, and I said, and that's why I took the Seahawks this last week. I took the points. I wish I would have taken them money line. It would have been better, but I wasn't impressed with the Lions offense as well. And you look at Jared Goff and that Chiefs defense really held them super, super well. So I agree with you. I'm not worried about the Chiefs at all. There's some other teams in the AFC that I think we need to worry about, but not the Chiefs. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to talk Monday Night Football when we come back. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. All right, welcome back to Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook here with Mark Gunnels. Let's move on to Monday Night Football game. We got a double header today. First up, we got the Saints Martin Saints, and the Carolina Panthers. The line is 3, favoring the Saints. So just a field goal here. Saints are favored -170 on the money line. Pretty low total here, 39.5. Anything that you're liking for this game?
Yeah, I'm taking the Saints to cover the 3
Yeah.
here. I think Bryce Young, his second game, we saw him struggle last week against the Falcons. I think now you're playing a better defense in the Saints. Got a couple of veterans back there in the secondary, Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badger, Marshawn Lattimore. They have a really good defensive front led by Cam Jordan. I think they're going to be able to get after him, cause a couple of turnovers. I would take a look at Bryce Young's interceptions as well.
Yes.
I think that's a good play there also.
Yes.
But I do like the Saints to cover here. I just think it's going to be tough sledding there. Also, on the other side of the ball, the Panthers are going to be without J.C. Horn, who I think is a really good young DB. It's just injuries early in his career is really hampering him so far. So I do think it's going to be close, though, but I think it's going to be one of them games where at the end, the Saints kind of get a touchdown to kind of pull away a little bit with Derek Carr leading them.
I agree with you. I'm laying the 3 with the Saints as well. And when you look at someone like Bryce Young, who has a huge upside, and then you look at someone like Derek Carr, who we kind of know what we're going to get from him, but he's just a little bit more consistent, and you can trust him more, having been in this league for a long time. And you already hit on this. Bryce Young had a very rough start last week, completed just 20 of 38 passes, 146 yards. I just can't imagine that he does better against this pretty stingy Saints defense. The secondary is stacked. They picked off Matt Ryan 3 times last week, and they ranked second in yards allowed per pass last year. And Young averaged just 3.8 yards per pass attempt against the Falcons. He was picked off twice. Yeah, love him for an interception here. I actually like, and so funny, we have 2 different quarterback props here. I like Carr over his 230.5 yards. It's interesting because the under is juiced here, but for week 1 and a pretty low scoring game, it was 16-15. Derek Carr, who only threw for a single touchdown pass, still threw for 305 passing yards against the Titans. The Saints offensive line was pretty abysmal against Tennessee, but he was able to move and juke and get himself out of quite a few kind of sticky situations. The Panthers pass defense last season was awful. They allowed the second highest catch percentage on targets last season, and they could be worse in 2023, as you said, with J.C. Horn out. And yeah, they looked kind of decent against a passing attack that just didn't even happen last week. I mean, we know that Arthur Smith refuses to pass the ball or throw the ball. So I'm taking Derek Carr over his passing yards, but you like Bryce Young under his.
Yeah, at 188.5, I think that's a little too much. He was under this number, like I mentioned last week, against the Falcons. And I think now you're facing even a little stingier defense in the Saints that especially have more togetherness, right? Because they don't have too many moving parts as the Falcons did. So I really like that a lot. I feel like we're kind of ragging on poor Bryce Young right now. I feel bad for the kid.
It's hard to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Tough, especially your first couple weeks, and your division opponents too, right? The Falcons week 1, and now you're playing the Saints. These are very important games to start off your career.
So Mark, let me ask you this, because I'm a proponent of not getting these guys out of the draft and sticking them in the NFL right away. I think you look at people like Patrick Mahomes, or even, I know he's necessarily not that great, but Jimmy Garoppolo, and like having them learn for a couple years under a different quarterback. Like you look at what happened to they just get their butts kicked. And some of them rise to the occasion. Mr. Irrelevant, weirdly, Brock Purdy, but he did have kind of half of a season or so. But it's just tough. What do you think? Do you think that these guys should start right away? Or do you think that kind of the old school way of drafting them, letting them learn a little bit before they get their start?
I think it's case by case basis. You mentioned Mahomes, but you had Alex Smith that's been a starter for several years and has had some success, went to the playoffs several times, right? Now, like in Anthony Richardson's case, what's the point of sitting behind Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew hasn't been a starter like consistently throughout his career. He's been a backup, a journeyman. So I think it's just a case-by-case situation.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson's been pretty fun to watch too. Him for an anytime touchdown has been cashing, but then I believe he's injured.
He needs to take care of himself, though. Stop taking those hits. Slide.
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was who's the Jags quarterback, Sunshine. I always blank on his name. Blonde,
Trevor
Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. He was like, yeah, I told him after the game, like, take care of yourself. You got to protect yourself. And that's, again, something that he's unfortunately learning the hard way. All right, let's look at the other game of tonight. You got the Browns and the Steelers. Browns are 2-point road chalk in Pittsburgh. This is officially the first time that the Steelers are home underdogs to the Browns since 1989. And this line flipped, Mark. Okay, the look-ahead markets had Pittsburgh as 2.5-point favorites. And then after both squads' week 1 performances, this line has completely flipped. It's a 4.5-point swing. To me, it feels like an overreaction, and I think that the Browns are a little overvalued in this point, and maybe you disagree with me here, but the Steelers are going to bounce back. I believe that the Steelers are better than what we saw against the 49ers. I think the Niners just punched them in the mouth right out the gates, and then they kind of couldn't recover. I do think that no Cam Hayward is a problem, but there's still TJ Watt in there, and Mike Tomlin, 16-0 straight up, 10-5-1 against the spread at home versus the Browns in the regular season since 2007. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, we're on opposite sides here.
Oh.
I'm back in Cleveland, but I must admit, I do feel a little dirty backing 2 favorites.
Well, I saw in week 1 you had 3 dogs, right? And all of them cashed.
Yeah. But I'm looking at it just from a pure football perspective. It's hard for me not to back the Browns here because, like you mentioned, no Cam Hayward. And then we saw week 1 against your Niners, that defensive line got after Kenny Pickett. Oof. Well, guess what? Can I introduce you to Myles Garrett?
Yeah.
and Zadarius Smith?
Don't introduce me.
I mean,
I don't want to be introduced.
It's just hard. I think they're going to get after Kenny Pickett just like the Niners did. So I do think it's going to be a close game. But there was a lot of points that Deshaun Watson left on the board last week as well. So without Cam Hayward, I think they're going to be able to run the ball and set up that play action and get things going. I'm not sure if Amari Cooper's going to play.
Yeah,
I saw that he's questionable, so that does concern me a little bit. So I must admit to the viewers, I'm not as confident in this one as I am the Saints. I'm cautioning you guys right now.
Well, look, this is a tricky one. The line has completely flipped. And I don't know if the Browns are as good as they look, and I don't know if the Steelers are as bad as they look. And I feel like we'll get a better baseline for both of these teams, like we did for all of these teams after competing in week 2. So you're not really high on the Steelers here, but you are high on Pickens.
Yeah, I am actually. And I think we agree on this one.
Yeah.
So I love this number. I got it at 43.5. I think you got it at 42.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's shop around, guys. Shop around.
Yeah. But I like it either way. I think, especially after week 1, he didn't really get targeted that much. There was a social media thing out there floating around about him liking a comment on Instagram talking about there's not a quarterback that can give him the ball there or whatever. So I think there's going to be a concerted effort to force feed him the ball tonight. So I think he crushes this number over 43.5 or 42, whatever you get it. That doesn't matter. He's going to have like 60 plus yards tonight. So I love it.
I agree. And that's actually one of my best bets for this game too. But so interesting, we talked about where I got it to. The line's been on a bit of a roller coaster. I believe it opened at like 41.5, and then it got bet up as high as like 45.5. And now it's kind of come back down 42, 43. And similar to you, like, I just think that Pickens is much better than what we saw in his week 1 performance. That was arguably against the best defense. And I know we got Myles Garrett and everybody coming up. He was 5 of 7, just 36 yards. I think he fares a lot better this week. I could see him getting loose for one, especially with Deontay Johnson out for the Browns. And it is worth noting that Pickens, I get them mixed up all the time. Pickens had a 72-yard game against the Browns just last season to kind of end the season. So, yeah, I think that George Pickens is better. I also think that the connection between – there's also some conspiracy theories that maybe Kenny Pickett got a concussion, at one point in the game versus the 49ers, and that's why he was playing so bad. I don't necessarily think that is the case. But I will say, I think that Deshaun Watson is going to go over on his rushing yards tonight. It feels like the passing game hasn't exactly taken off yet for Cleveland. Against the Bengals, Watson had 2 scores, 1 passing, ran 1 in. And then he had an interception there, but he only threw for 154 yards. It feels like Stefanski designed a little bit more QB runs and options for him. He ran for nearly 50 yards. And in terms of the Steelers defense, last week, I think was a little bit more of an outlier against the Niners. Patrick Peterson is better than that. All right, he got cooked by Ayuk, but we got to think that he's better than that in the secondary. So I do think that Deshaun Watson's going to be scrambling a little bit more. I think the run game is really going to be what the Steelers, what the Browns are leaning on here. I work at 3, just so we're clear here. I work at like 3. I get up at 3 a.m. on Sunday. So I feel like Mondays are always like a little bit of a hard one for me. But I'm going to go Deshaun Watson over on his rushing yards. Is there another bet that you like for this game?
Yeah, so I like the over on the total points here. It's at 38.5. I think without Cam Hayward.
You're taking the over.
I like the over here.
Okay.
I do. I know a lot of people love the under. I'm going the over because I think without Cam Hayward, like I mentioned, I think Nick Chubb will better get going. They'll set up the play action. I think the Browns better put up some points. And I see a scenario where they get out to an early lead where it forces the Pittsburgh Steelers to pass more than they want to, which is why I like
happened in week 1.
Yeah, which is why I like the George Pickens play. And then I think they'll be able to score some points because they'll be able to go up tempo a little bit. They get behind a little bit early, go up tempo, and I think this game gets into the 40s. I really do.
Yeah, well, look, I thought that the Niners and Steelers game was going to be a lot lower scoring than it was. And yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen what the Steelers run, rush attack can do because they're playing from behind and force Kenny Pickett to air it out a lot more. But that's an interesting take and makes a lot of sense. I may tail you on that because overs cashed like crazy yesterday too. I mean, week 2 has all been about the over. So I like that. All right, let's move on to Thursday night football. See, here's the Sunday rearing its ugly head again. 49ers and the Giants. The Giants are an interesting case here because everything that could go wrong on Sunday Night Football went wrong for them. And yes, the Cowboys defense is good, but it was embarrassing. And then they were down by a crazy amount yesterday against the Cardinals. They had this great comeback win. But again, it's against the Cardinals, who are supposed to be the worst team in the NFL, and they still allowed them to put a lot of points. I don't like double-digit spreads. I don't like double-digit spreads in prime time. Even though I like the Niners to win this game, I don't know that I lay the 10.5. Any early thoughts on Giants-Niners?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head right there. I'm taking Giants plus 10.5.
Yeah.
I think this is the easy play, especially considering it's a Thursday night game. We know how these Thursday night games are really weird. And you guys just came off a very physical divisional game. You know, the Giants won, but they're still getting mocked because why did you have to come back down 21 points or whatever it was against the freaking Cardinals, right? So I still think even though they won, it's one of those where it's like, it still leaves a bitter taste in your mouth because you should have performed better against that team. Yes. So I think they still come in this game very, very focused. And I think they still lose. I still have the Niners winning the game. But 10.5 is just a lot, especially on a quick turnaround, short week.
Well, the thing is like this one scares me because I feel like as a 49ers fan, you could easily overlook the Giants based on their performance in week 1 and even week 2. Yes, they came back, but they allowed the Cardinals to put up 21 on them, in the first half or so. So that's where I'm like, don't look 49ers. If you're listening, don't look past the Giants. They're a better team than what they've shown. I feel like they maybe have some confidence back after coming back and getting that big win there. I'm sure they're staying on the West Coast this week. I do like the 49ers team total again. I don't know what it is. If it's at 26, if it's at 28, I can see the Niners putting up 30 again. I mean, this offense is just hard to stop.
Yeah, and can I say this? I'm so glad the Giants won because I had them in my survivor pick this week.
I saw that.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get eliminated in week 2 because week 1, I've been doing this thing now where I'm probably going to slow down a little bit where I've been picking whoever the Cardinals play. So I had the Commanders week 1 in my survivor pool, and that was a nail biter.
Yeah.
Then I had the Giants week 2 in my survivor pool. So I'm still chugging along. They play the Cowboys this week, but I don't think I want to waste the Cowboys this early in the season. So I'm probably going to go somewhere else week 3.
Survivor is so interesting because things that you think will be a layup are the things that end up biting you in the butt. I mean, how many people got out the first week because I thought the Chiefs would for sure win that game, or the Vikings would beat the Bucs? I mean, there were so many crazy underdog flips that I feel like Survivor feels more like actual Survivor this year. Like
Yeah.
it's really survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You can check him out at Mark A. Gunnels, and tell the people everything that you're on. You're on Lemon Pepper. You got the Arrowhead podcast. What's going on?
Yeah, so we record every Wednesday, me and Martin Wise on the Extra Points Lemon Pepper podcast. We give you guys our plays, we react to the previous week. It's a really good show, and I try to convince Martin that the Saints aren't as bad as he.
Come on. Well, they're going to win and cover tonight, and maybe he'll feel a little bit better.
And then, And then also every Wednesday as well, I record for Arrowhead Pride. I have a podcast called Coast to Coast. Me and Aaron Ladd, we react to the Chiefs previous week, and then we preview the upcoming week as well. And then also do betting videos with the Lakers Nation as well. I give advice on every single Lakers game. Season's almost here, guys.
Wow.
About a month away. Can you believe it? Basketball is right around the corner. Wow. So yeah, just follow me on X. I'm starting to say X now. It's not Twitter anymore. At Mark A. Gunnels. Instagram, Mark A. Gunnels. That's where you see all of my content. So yeah, just follow me, guys. And yeah, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for you. And hopefully it's a rematch in the Super Bowl. Chiefs 49ers, baby. And that'll be fun.
Vegas.
It's in Vegas this year. For sports books too, this is like their Super Bowl, right? To have the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, I'm sure that it's just going to be a wild time. Hopefully I will see you out there. But thank you again for joining us. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets, and we'll see you next time.